We're going live here, and we got to get back to here. It's starting up here. Sorry about the technical difficulties, everybody. We might have to start this one up. Here we go. All right, we're on now. The history of Minnesota hip hop, right here on 91.7 WMCN. I am J.R. Maddox along with Eli. We're going to give you a little history about the Minnesota hip hop scene. And before we do, the first question was tell you a little bit about myself. Cynthia Johnson, remember the song Funky Town, sold over 35 million copies. I was her personal MC, and I also helped her on her comeback back in 1990 when she had a song called Eternity. And that was produced by John Rivers and Joey Kareem. We were the ones that helped her on her comeback. Second of all, I was the promotion manager and personal MC of Alexander O'Neal, Platinum. I'm the one that got him his record deal with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. So now we can go to that first question again because we're live now. Fine.
Okay.
All right. So you asked me, can you tell me a little bit about what's going on in the 80s hip hop scene? It wasn't really hot right back then because the hip hop was really just starting. But we had a group called the IRM crew, Kel C, Kelly Crockett, and DJ Cut and Cal. They were the first ones on wax, and that was in the early 80s. Also, you had MC Scat Cat. He was featured on a Paula Abdul song, and then he came out with his own CD. So MC Scat Cat Derek Delight, he's an air personality now on The Current right now.
What Paula Abdul song was he on?
I had it in my notes. It was either Straight Up or I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was featured on that, and that's how he got his start. Somebody saw him, so he was one. Also, we had a guy by the name of DMG. DMG, he was featured on some of the Rough Riders songs back in the day. And you had David Ellis, T.C. Ellis. That was Prince's guy. He was signed with Warner Brothers. He had a song back in the early 80s. So those were some of the things back in the 80s, but it was so limited because you only had a few places where the artists could perform. And there was only like a couple places that allowed hip-hop music to be performed in a venue. And that was, the first one was the Red Sea. There was a place called the Red Sea right over here by the Riverside area. And you had the Capri Theater in North Minneapolis. It was an old movie theater, and they turned it into a big place to let people perform and stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So those are the only outlets. And as far as radio goes, the only outlets for radio were KMOJ. That was the #1 urban station, still is in Minneapolis. And you had WMCN, McAllister College Radio, because they played a lot of local artists, hip-hop artists, too. So those were your two outlets. And then you had a show on cable called Limeo Live. And he used to let people perform. But I'm telling you, the 80s was not that popular in Minneapolis for hip-hop. You did also have a few hip-hop groups. You had groups, Damon Dixon and Split Level. They danced with Prince and danced on a lot of his videos. And then you had Gary Peterson and the Southside Lockers. They were a dance crew, doing the lock back then. You had a lot of break dancing and stuff going on back then, but it really wasn't hot. All right, now where do we go from there?
Will you tell us where local hip-hop artists were performing around the Twin Cities?
Yep, it was the Capri Theater. That was one of them. You had, that's in North Minneapolis. You had the Sabathani Community Center in South Minneapolis, and that's formerly Bryant Junior High School. That was a place that allowed some hip-hop shows. And also, Terry Clay had the Southside YMCA on 34th and Blaisdell Avenue. They allowed some of the local artists. Then you had a couple parks, too. But it just wasn't popular in the venues, in the top-notch venues.
Right.
So the 80s, honestly, although we had some people that made a little noise, no local hip-hop artist had ever wrote a hit.
Right.
So there was nothing really to compare to. Yes, they were out there on another person's song, but they never wrote a hit. So the 80s was kind of like, just getting us up there. So
getting started.
Now we're going to move on to the 90s.
Yeah, so what was it that happened in 1990 that gave some local hip-hop credibility in Minneapolis? Like, what really rose up the scene?
That was the Hip Hop Shop, a radio show came to town on KMOJ, and the host was Travis Lee, a.k.a. Travatron. He was from New York, so he was heavy into the hip-hop.
Okay.
I mean, he had that Brooklyn sound, he had the swag, and he came on and did a show. His first show on KMOJ blew up. I mean, like, who is this guy? The hip hop shop. We got hip hop on the radio in Minneapolis. I mean, people. The show was so popular, there wasn't even internet back then. You couldn't hear the radio station on internet. So, people would come in town, visiting stuff. They hear it on the radio, and they were like, my God, the hip hop. Have you guys heard the hip hop shop? So, and what else Travitron did too with the local artists, he used to let the local artists perform. He used to throw these big hip hop parties at Kaufman Union at the University of Minnesota. This is in 1990.
Wow.
So, and he used to let the kids freestyle on the air, and at the parties, he'd let the kids do their break dance and he'd let the people rap. So that was when hip hop got credibility in the 90s.
Yeah, wow. So that was 1990. So what was it in 1991 that gave like more local hip hop artists a chance to get their songs played on the air?
Well, I'm glad you asked me. That's why I created a show called Rush It or Flush It. I created a show, Rush It or Flush It, on the radio, and it allowed not just people that were good, it allowed anybody that had a demo tape to have their music aired on the air, and I had the local listeners call in and say, Rush It or Flush It. And let me tell you, you think the Apollo crowd is rough? The Minneapolis crowd was 1,000 times rougher. So that's when now hip hop had a chance, because back then, after Travitron left, there was no place in radio. No one wanted to touch local hip hop, and people were pounding me left and right. They knew I worked with a lot of R&B groups, but I had never worked with hip hop. So everybody's coming to me. So I figured, let me put this show on. That show is the #1 show in the history of Minnesota radio. It was the most popular show. It's still going on to this day. It's a little bit different. It's not like the original show I created, but the show is still going on for over 35 years.
It's still Rush It or Flush It.
Yes, and it's still on KMOJ, and it still gives local artists a chance to get their music aired. I'm going to quickly tell you how powerful this show was. This is before the internet, too. People used to drive their cars from St. Cloud, Minnesota, Duluth, Minnesota, Western Wisconsin, and Iowa, because the signal was only 1,000 watts. You could only hear it in the Minneapolis area. So people used to drive in Saturday afternoons, drive to the cities, park their car, and listen to the show. That's how popular it was. And also, I started getting tapes, not only from the Minneapolis artists, but people started sending me tapes from all across the world. I mean, Canada, Africa. It was just amazing. Great Britain. Yeah. So the show was that hot before there was internet. But that's when local people finally had a chance. Everybody had a chance to get their music aired. So.
Do you have any, favorites or any memorable artists that you can think of from, when you first started Rush It or Flush It?
And I'm so glad you came, because that was actually the perfect question to lead into this. Yes, they're the best artists I've ever heard, and I've worked with some of the best stars, but there was a young lady by the name of Tina Arredondo. She sent her tape in to KMOJ. She was 18 years old. She was a senior in high school at Patrick Henry High School. She sends her tape in. She's never performed or anything. Her tape, I put it on Rush It or Flush It. She gets the best score ever. 36 rushes, no flushes.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I said, but I knew before I even put it on that she was talented. I told her I was going to work with her. So it was like, wow. So this is her time span. I'm going to try and make this quick. This is her time span in 90 days. She's a senior in high school. She sends her tape to KMOJ. 2 weeks later, she wins Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's songwriting contest.
Wow, yeah.
2 weeks later, Steve Fingerette from Warner Brothers, locally here, hears her tape, and it was just a demo too. I had a demo tape. He asked, "Do you have any information on it?" I gave her information and a couple pictures. The next day, he made her bio up himself. He was so interested, and he made the bio up for her, and he sent it out to LA. This is all within a month. The next thing we do is release her song called Homeo. And this was just a demo, mind you. This was not made to be sold or anything. This was a demo to grab attention. We put it on the air one time. The phones never stopped ringing.
Wow.
The biggest song ever. I'm going to tell you how good this song is. The song was called Homeo. It was a Romeo and Juliet story, right? And in her lyrics, one of the lyrics said, he used to pump his gas up on Glendale and Broadway. Well, that's some streets in North Minneapolis, and people started calling, who is Romeo there? I mean, it was the biggest hit ever. I'm telling you, her song was out at the same time, like 112 had hits out. Eve had some hits out. Her song was bigger than that. I mean, it was just the biggest song. We did a little thing at Electric Fetus, one of the record stores there, and we put her demo out. And we had 100 copies. He said the first 100 people to Electric Fetus get Tina Arredondo singer. You know, within 10 minutes, the song it was gone.
It's gone.
100 copies were gone in 10
Whoa.
minutes. This is her demo. Okay, so now what she does, Tina comes out, and now she's opening up for all these big artists,
Mhm.
national artists, and she's stealing the show. I mean, she's actually stealing the show. Okay, that happens. She comes out with another song called Lovers at Night, Strangers in the Morning. That one explodes just as big as Hold Me Up. I mean, it's just unbelievable. She's gone from high school to being the biggest star ever. I mean,
Yeah, it's
her
crazy.
songs were bigger than Prince's. So to make a long story short, anybody can happen, but that's when the local hip hop scene
Mhm.
exploded. No one had seen a local hip hop artist
Mhm.
from Minneapolis have a hit record, and they've never seen anybody dominate like she did. I mean,
Right.
within 90 days, she was the top of the music world. So that's
Yeah.
when everybody else started coming out. And here's a list. That's when the Minneapolis hip hop scene exploded. Then you have people like Brother Ali, the Rhyme
Mhm.
Sayers,
Mhm.
Kilolo, the North Side Hustlers Clique, Little Buddy, Big Jess, Maniac MC, Slim Jim, Mimi, Latunji, and Chaos.
Mhm.
That's when the hip hop scene exploded in the mid 90s. But to this day, there is no one that's ever been like Tina Arredondo. I didn't tell you this too. Not only did she write hits, but she's the only one that could sing and rap. She wasn't
Wow.
just a hip hop.
Yeah.
She could sing better than she could rap. So I mean, she was just totally talented, and she was very marketable. You know, back then in the '90s, I don't know if you guys do your story, but most of the people they put out there were real slim. Most of the artists, long hair,
Mhm.
and I mean, she fit marketability wise. She fit.
Mhm.
I mean, it was just
Yeah.
unbelievable to this day.
That's amazing to hear of that kind of like viral, like rapid success at that time, especially because now with the internet, obviously, like people can, rise to fame super quickly. But that's incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like I said, in 90 days, she went from high school senior to being the biggest star in Minnesota. So, but she influenced everybody. That's when the local scene came out. I also want to tell you a few things too. I didn't write down, but there were some people that really helped out a lot, and I gotta acknowledge these people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Robin Robinson, the TV anchor from KMSP Channel 9. She was the #1 anchor. She was Prince's girl. Anytime Prince did an interview on TV, no one else could interview him but Robin Robinson. She was the #1. She was on KMSP Channel 9. I was working with a young lady by the name of Maniac MC. She was 15 years old and just dynamite talent. So I called Robin up and I said, Robin, you got to see this girl. Robin came over to the studio. The next day, she did a story on her and featured her on the KMSP News. And let me tell you why that's so significant.
Mhm.
In the 90s, there had never been a local hip hop artist featured on TV, and not in Minneapolis. You know, I mean, that was like big, big. And what she did, she opened the door, not only for her TV station, KMSP, but the other anchors used to follow what Robin did because she was #1. So now all the other stations are now, starting to show interest in local hip hop. So I want people to know how much that really meant. Robin Robinson opened the door for all local hip hop artists to be featured on TV in Minneapolis. In the 90s, you guys don't know what it was like. In the 90s, it was hard to get anything for a local artist. All right, also, we had a hip hop artist by the name of EJ. And let me tell you quickly about EJ. He was, how can I say, he was a rebel. He was bound and determined to make hip hop accepted in the mainstream. So he used to throw these big ciphers, and the ciphers where, a big group of rappers get around and they throw a beat on and each one takes a turn on the mic. So he started doing this, but that was in the inner city. And he said, man, I'm going to make hip hop more present downtown. He used to throw these big ciphers downtown, and the police people got scared. They saw all these people, but it was safe fun. Make a long story short, they told him if he ever did it again, he was unlawful. They gave him a ticket one time. Told him if he'd do it again. He got arrested for that. But I just want people to know that he was out there helping them help hip hop. There was a couple other people. DJ Van Cool from Cool Productions. He had his own recording studio. He used to let the kids come down, the young kids, teenagers, 15 to 20. He used to let them come down to the studio and rap for free. He was charging people, but most of the people didn't have money to pay for it. So he did a lot of work to help the local artists. Also, there was a couple concert promoters people need to know about. These concert promoters were throwing big concerts, with national acts.
Wow.
They bent over backwards to let some of the local hip hop artists perform on these shows. And I want to acknowledge iRock and Be Rich and Ray Seville. So also DC Dwayne Carter. If I mentioned you once, I'm gonna mention you twice. DC Dwayne Carter was a drive time personality on KMOJ 89.9. Also, he was a concert promoter. So DC Dwayne Carter, if you were good, a hip hop artist was good, he'd play you on drive time, and also he'd let you open up on these big concerts. So DC did a lot. Also, he was the one that did a lot of the talent shows over at Sabathani Community Center.
Mm-hmm.
So he worked with a lot of artists as well. And then there's a few other people. You know, there's so many people you can't name them all, but we got to have time. But there's a couple other DJs here that did a lot of work I want to mention. DJ Mad Mexican from KMOJ. She dedicated a whole hour of music to local hip hop artists. Michael Mack and Bizarre Behavior. They did a lot of work with local hip hop artists. Dan Speak and Disco T. Smoke and Delight. And Top Tone. So those are some of the big names. And let me tell you, you could go on for more than an hour with this, but I wanted to keep it within a permanent time. But I hope you guys learned something about hip hop, honestly, because a lot of this stuff you'll never ever hear because it's not you can't Google it.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted you guys to know that's how hip hop started. And I only went to like the early 2000s because what's going on now is really not history yet. You gotta. I'm 20 years or more for history. Gotta be. So somebody else can tell the history from 2002 to present, okay? But I'm giving you the facts. I was there. I was right there. I was in the midst of it. I want to also thank all the hip-hop artists I work with, all the dance crews, Essence of Ebony from North High. People don't know I worked with a lot of dance crews, too. Essence of Ebony from North High School, one of the best dance crews ever, and the Ladies. I used to work with a group called the Ladies. So I've been out there. I've done it. I thank everybody. I want to thank WMCN for allowing us to record this for the 20th Century Minnesota Music History Channel. This is going to be featured, and it will be in the archive. So I hope you guys learned something. Eli, thank you, man. I really appreciate it because I can't interview myself.
No, it was great. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
All right, we're going to get back to the boxing report coming soon, right here on 91.7 WMCN.
In the short time it takes to listen to this message, a small flame can turn into a
That was
fire.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Several minutes more,
Thank you.
and thick, poisonous
Would you
smoke
be
may have
interested
filled
in
your
maybe,
lungs
like,
and reduced your ability